Oasis Audio presents The Time Door by Shannon McDermott. Read for you by Adam Verner. To my sister Heather, who has been the reader that I needed. There was an end to Ilium, and an end came to Rome, and a man plays on a painted stage, in the land that he calls home, arch after arch of triumph, but floor beyond falling floor, that lead to a low door at last, and beyond there is no door. They are reeling, they are running, as the shameful years have run. G.K. Chesterton, The Ballad of St. Barbara. Prologue. Night covered Mars. Stars pricked the black sky, cold points of light, and the moon opened wide a bright eye. The volcano, incredibly high, incredibly wide, raised a new horizon. Nothing touched the starkness of its cold slopes. Time and ice choked the great volcano, burying its fires under unimaginable years. Margaret Killiam stared at the night, entranced in spite of herself. She had always hoped they would arrive during the day, at first because she wanted the sight of Mars and all its red glory to meet their landing. Later she only wanted to be in the sunlight again. She had never wanted to go straight from the night of space into another night. Still, this night, this darkness shrouding the barren plains and this starlight on the wasted volcano, this had its own glory. She looked up at the moon. Phobos, she knew, the greater satellite of Mars. It looked as if it were watching them, watching their lonely intrusion onto a planet that had cleansed itself of life untold eons ago. Margaret breathed in deep and turned back to the rover. She scrambled up into it, struggling against the clumsiness of her suit and the low gravity. As she settled into her seat, she knocked her legs against the hard-shelled case that contained her personal belongings. "We're all ready," the commander said, his voice distant and familiar over the transceiver. "Take us in, Colonel." Margaret looked at David. Her brother sat ahead of her and to the left in the driver's seat. As the only career pilot among them, that was naturally his place. Donegan Moynihan exercised his right as the mission commander to ride shotgun. That left her in the back with Gulliver Eamon. Eamon's expression was invisible behind his helmet's tinted faceplate, but his foot jerked impatiently. He didn't speak, and given some of the exchanges he and David had had in the ship, perhaps that was for the best. David's hand moved over the dashboard, and Margaret kept her eyes fixed determinedly on him. But she saw in the corner of her eye the hatch lowering. Air hissed as it sealed, locking them in, and she did all she could not to be bothered by it. "Not like the ship. We'll be out soon." She articulated the thought very clearly in her mind, but the tension in her muscles didn't ease. Then David's voice sounded in her ear, reverberated in the confines of her helmet. "Systems go." A thrum shadowed his words, the engine revving. Then the rover glided forward. "We're close." Eamon sounded breathless, his voice low but charged with intensity. "So nearly there." In moments the rover lost its smoothness, bucking as it crawled up the slopes of the volcano. The headlights glared on broken rocks, on the fruitless desert of a water-starved world. Red sand changed beneath the light, its hue growing darker, edged with hostility. Margaret strained her eyes ahead. There were too many shadows, darkness layered with darkness. But finally she caught a different shadow, deeper, steadier. The rover pressed toward it, and she knew. "Annie," Eamon said, a strange affection in his voice. He might have been addressing a woman. The black hole grew higher and broader than the rover.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?